Hello, my name is Sarah Schroeder and I'm the Senior EPR Data Quality Training Facilitator for Education at Bradford Teaching Hospitals. In this video, I will be demonstrating how to complete an elective admission, how to admit acutely with a pre-admission, as well as how to admit acutely without a pre-admission. All SOPs for this process can be found via the EPR SOPs desktop icon once you've double-clicked onto the icon and navigated through to the appropriate trust. You can either locate the appropriate SOP by going into the applicable section, or you can do a document quick search located at the top of the screen. All titles for the SOPs covered within this video will be provided in the description box below, as well as timestamps if you wish to skip to this section. In order to electively admit a patient from the transfer list, you must ensure that you have the transfer list open within capacity management. At 1800 hours, all patients with a TCI for the following day will automatically populate within the transfer list with a TCI bed request. From here, you can locate the patient that needs to be admitted, select the drop-down to the left of the patient's name, and select Inpatient Elective Admission. In the next window, it will provide a message confirming this conversation will admit the patient and do you wish to continue. If you have selected the incorrect patient at this stage, you can select No. In my case, I do wish to proceed as I do have the correct patient. From here, you will then need to fill in all of the yellow mandatory fields. This patient requires to be admitted into Ward 11, so I'm going to select the bed board to view the availability within this ward, and I can see that Bay 2, Bed 12 is still currently available. So I'm going to select this bed. I can see in the top left-hand corner that I do still have one missing field. This can be selected and it will take you to the field that is missing. And you will notice that as soon as I have completed all of my mandatory fields, this icon does turn grey. Now I can press OK. I do not wish to print any documents, and the patient will be removed from the transfer list and they will now be visible within the ward. For the process on how to admit a pre-admit encounter and then admit acutely on arrival, within capacity management, you will come into the pre-admit list, and within the pre-admit list, you would then select the PM conversation icon and select Inpatient Non-Elective Pre-Admission. This will launch the patient search box, at which stage you will be required to conduct a patient search. Not only should you be doing what is known as a local search, but you should also be doing what is known as a PDS search. In order to complete a full PDS search, you will need the patient's surname, the gender, and the date of birth at a minimum. Once you've typed in the patient's surname, gender and date of birth, you can either press enter on your keyboard or press the search button, at which stage the system will do a local search which checks if the patient is already currently registered within EPR. At this point you can see that the patient is already currently registered within EPR, but the next stage in this process is to complete the PDS search. PDS stands for Patient Demographic Search, and it will ensure that this patient's local record within EPR is correctly linked with the spine. This will ensure that if the patient does update their GP details, so for example if the patient has moved their home address or changed their telephone number, changed GP, all they will need to do is update it with their GP practice or their new GP practice. This will be uploaded onto the spine, and as soon as we complete the PDS search and link this patient's local record with the spine, it will pull through any updates that has been received for this patient. As soon as I click the PDS search, the first step is to complete the organisation window. You should not be filling in the client name at the top, and you should only be entering the facility name. For example, Bradford Royal Infirmary, Westwood Park, St Mary's Hospital. For training purposes, I'm going to select for Bradford Royal Infirmary and ensure it is the lowercase Bradford Royal Infirmary and not the uppercase. At this stage, the system is asking for what facility we need to enter, not the trust as a whole. So you should never be selecting the uppercase at this stage. So I'm going to ensure it's the Bradford Royal Infirmary. I've highlighted and press OK. Comes up with an audit box, so you can acknowledge the warning, just letting you know that this is going to be audited for security reasons, and accept. Now at this stage it has pulled up a list of PDS results. Now if, for example, I had searched for a common name such as Robinson, it might come up with a long list of results at this point. If you do end up with a long list of results, it might be best advised to cancel out of this screen and return to the PDS search and maybe type in some further details such as a forename or a postcode, just to dwindle your results down slightly so that you don't risk accidentally selecting the wrong patient. Alternatively, you might end up pulling through no matching patients on the PDS search. So if this is the case and it comes up with this PDS did not return any results, this does not necessarily mean that the patient is an overseas patient, for example, and they're not on the spine. It could just be that you've typed in their details incorrectly. For this reason, it might be beneficial to have your summary care records open, and just keep this open at the bottom of your screen. This will allow you to type in the patient's NHS number, and it will verify if you've spelt the patient's name correctly. If you have a double-barreled name, for example, it will instruct you on how to correctly input the patient's name to make sure that we've pulled through the PDS. So I'm just going to return to this process, but this time I am going to complete the full PDS. I have found the correct patient, and I can verify that by the NHS number and the address, as well as the GP details. So once I've highlighted the correct patient from this list, I'm going to click the select button. Now at this stage it has pulled up a discrepancy screen. On the left hand side of the screen we have a local person, and on the right hand side we have a PDS person. At this stage you should be verifying which side is most up to date. So the local person is what the EPR system currently holds on this patient, whereas on the right hand side it is showing what the spine currently holds on this patient, i.e. what the GP has on this patient. Now each of these fields will have a date from when they're effective from. So this is how you can verify which side is most up to date. So I can see that the right hand side is most up to date. So this is the side that I am actually going to accept. Now at this point, if it did turn out that the EPR information, the local information that we have on this patient is more up to date, you can choose to just keep the left hand side rather than the right hand side at that stage. But whichever side is most up to date, once you've selected it, you can press update. Complete the yellow mandatory fields in line with locally agreed processes and ensure that you select the ward that you wish to pre-admit to. Once all of the yellow mandatory fields have been completed, you can then proceed to press OK, and the patient will appear on the pre-admit list tab within capacity management. In terms of some of the fields that I have not populated yet, we have the military status. We do have a separate video on the military status. If you have not seen this video at this point, please go watch that now. In terms of legally residents, you should only be selecting unable to validate if this is an emergency scenario where we are not able to identify this patient's residency status. If you have the opportunity to do so, you must ensure that you're going onto summary care records where you will be able to verify this status. I'm going to say for this scenario that I have already verified this status and they are a legal resident, and that I have also checked with the patient that they are not serving military members. I'm going to put none for that one. As this is a pre-admission, the patient is not currently here yet, so I'm going to say that they're expected in 30 minutes' time. Once I press OK to this, the patient will appear on the pre-admit list tab in capacity management. When the patient arrives on the ward, within capacity management, ensure that you are currently selected in the pre-admit list tab again. Locate the patient within the pre-admit list, and when you hover over the patient, come into the drop down to the left of the patient, into PM conversation, and inpatient non-elective admission. This should only be done once the patient has physically arrived to the ward. Once you select onto the non-elective admission, you will then need to confirm the ward and bed, as well as the visit date and time, and select OK, and the patient will now be fully admitted into the ward. In order to admit acutely without a pre-admission, you must first ensure that you are in capacity management, coming into the pre-admit list again, but this time when we select onto the PM conversation, we're going to select onto inpatient non-elective admission. This will once again launch the patient search window, which you will be required to complete the PDS search showed earlier on in the video, and you will have a very similar screen to the one we saw previously with the pre-admission. However, this time you will need to select not only the ward, but the bed immediately that you want this patient to be admitted into, and you will also need to enter the precise visit and time that the patient arrived. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions relating to any of the processes covered within this video, you can contact any member of the team on the email addresses provided. Alternatively, you can email epr.dqtraining@bthft.nhs.uk. This email account is monitored by the entire EPR training team and it is monitored daily.